both work in the field of education. We have the same struggles helping our kids academically just like any other parent.
So we want to share what we've learned and invite experts to share with us so we
Right.
can all learn together. Join
12,
us Tuesdays from 11 to noon in
8,
the Blue Bowl.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good morning. Welcome to School Days, Help for Moms and Dads of School-Age Kids. I'm Danita Bailey.
And I'm David Bailey, and I am back.
Welcome back, dear.
Thank you, baby.
Did you enjoy your field trip?
It was a fun field trip.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So there are a lot of myths we believe about sleep that are adversely affecting our lives. Many of us as students pulled all-nighters out of desperation to finish a project or cram for a test, not knowing how we were actually hurting our chances of a good grade. So in today's episode, we want to debunk these myths about sleep, tell you how sleep can affect your child academically, and give tips for improving sleep health, which could actually affect your overall health.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you ever pull an all-nighter?
It was only usually around finals time that I had to crank those out. And ironically, there was a place at the University of Pittsburgh called the Fish Bowl. It was at the medical school, and this is where all the students, you would get I used to get Jolt Cola.
Oh, my gosh.
Ooh, Jolt. Yes. Do you know about Jolt Cola?
Yes.
Yes. I'd hit up one of those around 11:30. I was good for the rest of the night. But usually, during the regular semester, I was pretty good. And when I was younger, like in high school, I was pretty busy. So I, went to school, played sports. Then I had a paper route. Yeah, 7th through 12th grade.
So
Bill's
you had to
character.
get up pretty early for that.
Yeah.
What time did you have to get up to do your paper route?
Sunday mornings. It was around 4:30.
It was just a Sunday morning paper route?
No, 7 days a week.
Oh.
It was after school. It was the evening edition. Yeah.
I never knew that all these years.
Yes, it was the Pittsburgh
I imagined
Press.
you like at the crack of dawn getting up.
No, on a bicycle.
Yes.
And my little ringer. with the little flare hanging. No.
I think that's a girl bike.
No, well, no, I didn't have that. I didn't ride on a bike. I actually delivered the papers to the door of my customers because I cared.
Because you cared.
I had great tips though. Anyway, we're getting off topic.
We are.
Yeah.
So you can sleep anywhere because you are not well rested.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like if I asked you to fall asleep right now,
At
you probably
will.
could.
Anyone out there, if you ever run into me, just say, David, go to sleep and give me about 5 minutes and I'll be out.
5 is generous.
Yeah.
Like you could fall asleep in a minute and a half.
I probably could, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I have.
And that's not good. We're
No.
going to find out more about why that's not good.
We are.
Yeah.
But I have things to do.
You're having some microphone
I'm having
issues
some
this
microphone
morning.
issues. I'm gonna have to
This
hold it up.
microphone keeps
Yes.
flopping
All
down.
right. I want to tighten. Anyway, all right. There we go.
Okay, so, well, before we go any further, we want to say that it does take a village. So if you hear a great parenting tip or nugget of advice, share it with your parent friends. Facebook it, Instagram it, tweet it, link it in, and add the hashtag School Days Show and I am School Days. And we also want you to be a part of the show. So if you have any questions or comments, give us a call at 214-431-5062. So, Dave, who is with us today?
So we have Emily Benning. Emily grew up overseas. Where'd you grow up overseas at?
In Papua New Guinea.
Papua New Guinea.
Yeah.
That sounds like missionary work.
I was
right
gonna
there.
say,
Missionary
that
work,
sounds like a missions
absolutely.
family.
Yes,
Missions
yeah.
family, you got it.
I know that's what, yeah. I remember that. That was one of the top, like top 5 vacation spots. Like one of the top 5. I don't know.
I don't know.
It just
I've
sounds
never
like
heard
everybody.
that.
Yeah, I don't know if it is or not.
A lot of scuba divers like to go down there.
Oh.
So she grew up in Papua New Guinea, and was a music major in college. Where'd you go to college, Emily?
I went to college at College of the Ozarks in Branson, Missouri.
Yes, I have heard of it. Yes, is that where the Ozarka water comes from?
I don't think so.
No, okay. It just sounds like it would. Okay, anyway, let's not digress even more. As her passions and interests grew, she decided to attend Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, where she earned her Master of Arts in Marriage and Family Counseling. After launching her career in inpatient psych, she decided to take a holistic brain-based approach to counseling and helping relationships, and transitioned to private practice. She has earned board certifications in neurofeedback. I want to find out more about what that is. And as well as Christian counseling, and loves helping adults and teenagers who struggle with feeling sad, scared, or stuck. She loves being an LPC who listens intently, a friend who camps and hikes, and an introvert who enjoys a good cup of coffee and a book.
Oh, you had me at coffee.
Yeah.
I really need some
Who
right
d-
now.
I
I'm
know.
super sleepy. I was talking to Jamie in the front and saying it is so ironic that we're doing a show about sleep health and I stayed up too late and I'm exhausted. Like
Yeah.
a little bit in a coma.
Yeah, I only got about 3.5, maybe 4 hours of sleep last night.
Oh,
Yeah, so
no.
Emily,
don't
we
tell
need
me
you.
that.
She's like, shame. I'm going to get you, David. Yeah.
Okay, so my good friend Amanda Gamma, who's from Mendon Clinic, which is where you see patients,
Yes.
asked me, she said, have you ever thought about doing a show on sleep hygiene? And I said, no, because I don't know what that is. So let's ask you that. What is sleep hygiene?
Yeah, so the way that I like to talk about sleep hygiene is basically everything that we do to get ready to go to sleep and also the environment in which we sleep. And so it has to do with what our bedroom is like, or the place that we're sleeping, what the environment is like. Is it cool, dark, and quiet? Or do we have basically a quote unquote clean sleeping environment? And then also sleep hygiene has to do with the activities leading up to what you're doing leading up to sleeping. So are you getting off your screens an hour before bedtime? Are you doing something relaxing like taking a bath or a shower, reading a calm book, those kinds of things to help you get set up for a good night's sleep? So all of that has to do with sleep hygiene.
Okay, yeah. So how much sleep do kids, adolescents, adults need? Is it the same? Do you need less as you get older?
Yeah, so you actually do need less as you get older. So when, obviously infants sleep all the time.
Right.
And then so when children transition into kind of where they're sleeping at night and then taking a nap in the day, the total number of hours throughout the day is anywhere between 11 and 15 hours for children. Preteens and adolescents, their numbers are usually between 9 and 11 hours of sleep, and then adults require about 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And so anything less than that is not really very good for your health.
So
I'm
not
sad to
3.
say.
Why'd you look at
3
me
to
when you
4.
said that? She looked right at me when she said that. She's like,
Did you
it's
feel
not good. Yeah.
You told
Did
on
you feel
yourself.
convicted?
She's like, so you got a half of the
You got
recommendation.
half of what you
Less
need,
than half.
Yeah, so
if you
have
need
to,
7 to 9.
Yeah, she's gonna have to school us on what that does.
Right. So, in doing a little research for the show, I saw some terms like sleep load and sleep debt. What is that, and how does that all affect the brain and sleeping?
Yeah. So sleep load, sleep debt, those are terms to kind of talk about, I didn't get enough sleep last night, so I might have a sleep debt. Sleep load is like, I feel like I can make up for that by sleeping, 10 hours tonight because I only slept 3 last night. And so, that would be trying to do a sleep load. And so, there's kind of some disagreement in the field on whether you actually can catch up, those kinds of things. And something that I was just reading recently encouraged you to look at your kind of on a weekly basis, what your sleep habits are like. So, if you got 3 hours last night, but you can kind of make it up throughout the week, kind of looking at your total hours of sleep throughout the week versus like if you just have one bad night of sleep. I think sometimes people can start to have anxiety, like I didn't get enough sleep last night, and then that anxiety keeps them awake even more. And so you want to be careful about, not getting too anxious about not getting enough sleep, but then also being conscious of, hey, I probably need to, over the accumulation of the week, make sure I'm getting enough.
So I'm just thinking, I'm doing the math here. So if you're saying 7 to 9 hours for an adult, then you're saying about 49 hours, 50 hours-ish of sleep. So that's the equivalent of basically 2 whole days of your week. Just sleeping.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a lot of sleep.
It is. So we spend about a third of our life sleeping.
Yeah.
Or we should.
We should. We should.
Some
Dave.
of us don't. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So why do we need to sleep? Like, what happens in the brain that causes us to actually need to sleep?
Yes, that's a great question. And I think maybe because we don't understand how important sleep is, we kind of neglect it a lot. And so I'm really glad that you asked that question. So lots of things happen while we're sleeping. Our brain is actually almost more active when we're sleeping than when we're awake. So what's happening in the times that we're sleeping are our brain is kind of going through and cleaning out things that we don't need, getting rid of excess memories, things like that, consolidating memories that are important, and getting rid of things that we don't need. The brain is also preparing us to be more there's phases of sleep that actually help with muscle movement and memory, social awareness, things like that, and creativity. And so sleep is really important if you want to develop all of those things. And then from a body perspective, pretty much all of our body systems are helped by sleeping. So our immune system, all of our organs, they need us to be asleep in order to do the repairs that they need to do, and help us to function at an optimum level. And so sleeping is really important. If you think of all of the goals, pretty much any goal that you have in your life, if you're getting sufficient amounts of sleep, it's going to help you achieve that goal even better. So sleeping is so important. And I think because people don't understand it, they think, oh, well, I need that time. But really, you're kind of hurting yourself by not sleeping enough. So
yeah, I saw this really cool video. I think it was from a TED Talk maybe, but it showed how the waste that you were talking about builds up during the day. And is it called adenosine? Adenosine. Yes, it's a chemical that builds up in your brain, and it causes you to be sleepy. Is that correct? Yeah. And then at night, brain fluids and stuff come and wash it away. This was a really cool video. And then you have lower levels in the morning if you've gotten a good night's sleep. But if you haven't gotten a good night's sleep, then you have higher levels of this chemical, and that causes you to still be sleepy. So that's why it's important to actually get a good night's rest, so all that waste and stuff can go away and cause you to be wide awake. Yeah. That's
cool, Danita. Yeah, actually, not to get too sciencey, but yeah, you're right. The adenosine is the neurochemical, the neurotransmitter that helps us to feel like we're sleepy. And you're right, as we go through our night, that adenosine is absorbed, reabsorbed into our brain. And what happens when we don't get enough sleep is that adenosine is still kind of like floating around, making us feel sleepy. A really interesting thing about that, going back to your jolt that you love, is...
Well, not anymore. That was 20...
Stop picking on me, Emily.
20, I don't even know if they have that anymore.
25 years ago. I'm hitting myself. Man, yeah, anyway, yeah.
So something interesting that happens is when we intake caffeine blocks our adenosine receptors. So we don't feel as sleepy. But just because those receptors are blocked and we're not feeling like we're sleepy, it doesn't mean that we actually aren't tired. It just means that we are tricking ourselves into thinking that we're not tired. And so that adenosine is still there. It still needs to be up. Yeah, it's still building up throughout the day. Okay. You still need sleep to be able to release it properly. But we can kind of trick ourselves into thinking that we don't.
Okay. So, here goes my here we go. Yes. You know me.
All right.
So I'm trying to relate it to something that I can connect to. So it's kind of like, so it needs to flush out by the morning so you can have a good day, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of like
oh Lord.
It's kind of like an unflushed toilet basically for your brain. Yeah, because a flushed toilet, it flushes out all the it flushes away. And it's clear again, right?
Yeah,
so
I'm gonna have to think through that analogy.
Yeah, think. Just I want you to chew on that for a minute.
I'm gonna put that in my back pocket.
Yes. Using my medical expertise here to break this down for the layman.
Or
yes.
It could be like the kidneys and them getting backed up.
I can't see kidneys. I can see toilets.
You can see that's okay.
Can you see kidneys?
I cannot.
Exactly. So anyway, that's how it relates to me. So anyone else
that's
out
why
there,
we're not medical experts.
Yeah. Anyone out there who's feeling me? Chew on that one for a second.
Chew on that toilet analogy.
Yeah, it's like an unflushed toilet all day. Yeah, which isn't good, right?
Yeah, exactly.
See, there you go.
It's not good.
That's okay.
It's not good.
I'm sorry.
You want to get that out.
Yes, you gotta flush it. Sleep. It's like a flush. Whoosh. All right.
Okay. So, can you kind of tell us What happens in the because I know that I've heard of REM sleep, and there's different levels or stages, let's say stages of sleep. So what happens in those different stages?
Yeah, so I kind of talk about that in two categories. So I'll talk about REM sleep, and then I'll talk about everything else is non-REM. And there's about 4 different stages of non-REM sleep. Non-REM sleep is a little bit more deep sleep, and REM sleep is not as deep. So your non-REM sleep is the deepest sleep that you have. It's very restorative. And basically it's that cleaning that we're talking about. It's weeding out, removing unnecessary neural connections that we don't need. So the purpose of the non-REM sleep is to really just clean out all the things that we don't need and then hardwire the memories that we do need. So that non-REM sleep is really important to help us to be able to have memories that we are needing. And so if you're feeling like you're having a problem with your memory, think about, okay, am I getting enough sleep? Am I getting enough of that deep restorative sleep? The bulk of that sleep happens kind of in the first part of the night and into kind of the middle part of the night is really when your body focuses more on that non-REM, on those non-REM phases. And then REM sleep is really interesting. It's not as deep of a sleep, but it is really important to help us with creativity. That's where we experience dreaming. And then that's also where we really get a lot of good social acuity from. It helps with muscle memory enhancement. And then, so this REM sleep, we tend to get more REM sleep kind of near the morning hours of the night. And so people talk about, burning the candle at both ends. And I would say, like, you can't even burn the candle at one end, because at one end, you're really getting that deep restorative sleep. On the other end of your sleep phase, you're getting that really good REM sleep. And they're both really, really important. So, yeah, that's what people mean by REM sleep. And then we also have those deeper phases that are non-REM.
So what effect does so when it's time to wake up, or at least when you have an ideal time of when you would like to wake up, and then you hit the snooze button, and you're like, oh,
I'm terrible about this.
Yeah,
I will hit it 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I would.
She just cut me off.
Yeah, she did.
She just said, you just cut me off.
I apologize. That was very rude.
Keep go on now. You got it.
When I was in college, we had bunk
house.
beds, and I was at the top of the bunk bed, and I would get down, climb the ladder down, get to the alarm clock across the room like 7 times.
Oh no.
7?
But your
Yeah, it
roommates
was
loved
bad.
you.
Oh, I know. Isn't that awful?
That's pretty bad.
But tell us why that was not a good idea.
Yeah. So obviously, the alarm, the snooze button is very disruptive. And so you may think like, oh, I just feel really tired if I can just get 10 or 15 more minutes. And I would just say it's better to not have this disruptive sleep and just wake up when it's time to wake up. Just get up, because otherwise you're not really getting any benefit out of those extra 10 to 15 minutes of sleep. Or, some people will snooze for like an hour. And, in my opinion, getting that really good restorative, uninterrupted sleep for that extra hour is much more valuable than hitting snooze for an hour, or even, a couple times, 10 to 15 minutes.
So you're better off
so
just
good,
waking
though.
up late. So just go on ahead and wake up late instead of psyching yourself to thinking,
Right.
well, if I hit it at this time and I'm going to keep on hitting it, that
Right.
somehow that's better.
Yeah, some people plan, you'll plan, okay, well, I can snooze for an hour. And I would say it's really not very restful to have that hour. You're not really getting really good restful sleep.
Gotcha.
So we're fooling ourselves, because it does feel good.
Yeah. And so
but it's not really helping me.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's kind of like the psychological habit, right? I'm not really ready to get up. I
Yeah.
don't feel ready to face my day. And I would say, if that's happening consistently where you don't feel ready to get up, looking at the other end of your night, what time are you going to sleep? And that's the part that people
Right.
struggle with as well. So it's definitely a battle. I get it.
Yeah, I know it's a struggle with our kids in the morning. I have to give them about a 20-minute runway to get up. I could yank them out of bed, like, get out of bed. So we don't do a lot of. Well, you do snooze. You snooze.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to get her out of bed too. To be honest with you, I'm kind of getting them all going here. Like, babe, hello, hello. Okay, get it.
Need some help.
She's all. But with what would you recommend as far as helping kids just to get up? Because it's not just I mean, unless I don't know very many kids that are. Well, I mean, I don't know how kids sleep, so I guess I don't know what I'm talking about here. I'll just refer to my kids. So with our kids, they don't just pop up unless they have some type of incentive. Well, maybe we'll incentivize them. Like, hey, if you get up, we'll something rather than, oh, okay, then they'll pop up and go over.
Or if it's a vacation day, then they get up at 6.
Yes.
Easily.
On the days that they're supposed to be sleeping
Spring
in.
break.
Bing,
Christmas
hey.
break. They're like 6 o'clock. Hey, mommy.
Right.
I'm like,
right.
wake me up at 8, please.
Yeah.
So any tips on how to help to get these
Yeah.
kiddos up? Teenagers?
Right. So yeah, that's a tough one.
Splash
for
water
sure.
on them?
For sure, that's
Oh.
tough.
Oh,
What?
Oh, I'm sorry. We have a
well,
call.
before you answer
great.
that question, let's take this quick call here. And I'm going to try not to hang up on him. Hi, you've reached School Days to help for moms and dads of school-age kids. What's your name and where are you calling from?
This is Malcolm Finkley, my friend.
Hi, Malcolm. Finkley.
Oh, my goodness. That's a blast from the past. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fine. I'm actually in an audio-visual class right now. I'm teaching.
Oh.
And so what better way to teach it? Better way to teach it than to have we call in to you to understand, education and this whole audio so they can kind of see how this works. And
Yeah.
so I'm in a classroom of about 30 students right now.
Oh, hi, guys.
What's up, y'all?
What are the ages of the students? How old are they? What grade?
They're middle school. I have 7th and 8th graders.
Oh, that's
Wow.
awesome. So are you guys going to, can they hear me?
Are they doing what now?
Can they hear us?
Yes, they can hear you. You're
Okay.
on.
So what time do you guys go to bed at night?
What time you guys go to bed at night?
Man, not till 2 because, the drugs are keeping me up, you know what I'm saying?
I heard midnight.
So the answers range anywhere from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m.
9 to 2 a.m. What video games are you playing at 2 a.m.?
Fortnite.
Fortnite. I knew that was the answer. So
And then also we have the cell phone. So what drew me into the show today was this whole issue of kids going to bed at night. And I figured, hey, well, they're here, they're occupied with, the video game and with the cell phone that has really changed the game in a lot that we do.
absolutely.
Because they have their phones. And so me as a classroom teacher, I have to battle the phone even at night because I have students waking up and not being productive in classroom because they didn't get the adequate rest at night.
Yes, and we are going to talk more about that and just how it is affecting your students and why a good night's rest is important. It's not just important for academics, but it's important for your overall health, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, which they probably don't care so much about right now, but you might care about getting better grades.
Or they might care about, do they have any more STAR tests to take?
Science, right?
Yes.
Okay, students, if you have a STAR test to take next week, I believe, on Monday, Tuesday or so-ish, if you don't go to sleep normally early, I would recommend going to bed reasonably early the night before, maybe by 10 at the latest, because you don't want to be sleepy taking that test. It is not a good thing. It's a 4-hour test, and so I would encourage at least, and ideally all the time, but at least for 1 or 2 nights, just suck it up and go to bed early so you can get a good score. It would stink if you got problems wrong simply because you didn't get enough sleep.
Yeah, that's something. Now let me ask them because I got 8th graders here who actually have passed the math and the reading portion of the STAR.
Yes.
Did you guys go to sleep early? Do you think that had an effect on your test grades?
No, I slept late.
I was playing Fortnite till 2 a.m.
Well,
I did just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, you can see with students they may not see the importance of that now.
Yeah.
But I know as a educator, as a human being, when I don't get the proper rest, it makes for a difference.
Yeah, I agree.
Wow. Well,
Yeah, it makes for a major difference in my instruction, in my ability to think, And so it's transferring that knowledge with the competitions now of technology is a struggle, I think, for every parent and for every instructor. That we need shows like this to help us get insight and gain. So, I love you guys, and so I just wanted to call in and kind of show them how this works from a technical perspective, but also on a subject that is dear and that we're dealing with every day.
Well, and also speaking of the screen issue, our very first episode, which you can download on iTunes and Apple Podcasts, was about the effect of gaming on students. So that's one that you might want to listen to with your students.
I will definitely listen to it, and I think I can create an assignment based on it.
Oh, that's I love it. Now we're talking. Yes. Wow.
Well, thank you guys so much for calling.
And thanks, Malcolm, man. And hopefully we can catch up sometime soon. Love to catch up with you.
All right. Y'all take care.
Okay.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
That's
cool.
right.
Love
That's real.
That's cool.
Real. That's where they're at.
It is. Yeah. We do have a couple of people with questions on Facebook Live. So Jorge Gamma, and this Jorge actually goes along with a couple of the questions that we have, which is how does different activities and different things that we eat or whatever affect whether or not we're going to have a good night's sleep. And his question specifically was, how does alcohol affect your ability to obtain restorative sleep?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Jorge.
Hopefully not for children.
Yeah, not for
or
children.
maybe for
but
older.
for their parents.
Because I know no teenagers drink at all ever.
No, never.
Anyway,
no.
So what?
So alcohol, it's really interesting. It helps you to feel sleepy. Like a lot of people like, okay, I'll have a little nightcap so I can just, drift off. But actually, alcohol is very bad for REM sleep. And so it actually kind of takes away your ability to experience that deep restorative sleep, as well as just that really good REM sleep in particular. So they've done some studies with some people in like alcohol rehab centers, and when they first come in and they're detoxing, they have almost zero REM sleep. And so all of these functions that are happening during REM sleep, just that creativity, that social interaction, all of those things are being hindered by that alcohol consumption. And so it takes your body a while to metabolize that alcohol. And so it's, I don't want to encourage morning drinking at all, but I mean, if we're talking about when is the best time of day to drink,
in the morning, right before going to work.
No, I'm not encouraging that at all.
Parents don't do that. You or your children.
Yeah.
Yes, don't try that at home.
Along those lines, exercise before sleep. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Should you have some space between sleep and exercise?
Yeah, so exercise is actually really, really good for sleep. Exercise absolutely will help. It's one of those sleep hygiene things that we were talking about. They can actually help you really have a good night's sleep. Usually people recommend about a 2-hour gap between when you exercise and when you go to bed. And that's just because exercising can be so activating. It can produce other neurotransmitters that are going to compete with your sleepy neurotransmitters. And so it's best to kind of give yourself a little bit of a break before you try to go right to bed after exercising.
I know one of our strategies is maybe if we're out late and we're out somewhere with the kids and they're just running around, running amok, and like, you know what? Let them.
Yeah, just let them
run it
off.
Run it off. And then as soon as we put them in the car on the way home, they're out. They're like, yes.
Yeah.
And they go straight to bed.
But apparently we need to do that 2 hours before we get home.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What about those people, and I used to be one of them, that says, I can drink an espresso before bed, and it doesn't affect me at all.
Yeah, and so what we talked about earlier was just how that caffeine, blocks that adenosine, and so it doesn't allow us to feel sleepy. Some caffeine affects every person differently, but typically, people recommend don't have caffeine, especially if you're having a hard time with going to sleep or staying asleep. So if you're noticing you're waking up really early in the morning and you can't go back to bed, it could be because of your caffeine intake. So if you have any problems with sleep at all, I would say limit your caffeine intake to the morning only. And if you continue to have sleep problems, some people may just not be built for caffeine. Like I said, all of our bodies are affected differently by that. So.
I remember when I was in college, there was these two guys. They had a dorm room, and they were infamously known as, they're called the Dew Crew.
Like DEW, like Mountain
Mountain
Dew?
Dew, yeah,
Dew.
no,
Okay.
literally, yeah. And so their whole room literally was Mountain Dew cans from anyone who's listening from 92 to 96 era at University of Pittsburgh. You know what I'm talking about. Just shout out to my pit crew there. You know, they had this wall literally from bottom to top all the way around the Mountain Dew cans, and
Wow.
so that was literally hundreds and hundreds of cans. And they were fan. They'd smile and cheesing in front of them and everything. Yeah, so I'm sure they were not getting much sleep. Yeah.
Wait, what? I must have missed something. What did that have to do with sleep? The Mountain Dew guys?
No, just the
Too much
caffeine.
caffeine.
Too much
Oh,
caffeine.
the caffeine. Oh, sorry. I was like, what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah,
Okay. Yes,
yeah.
they were drinking a lot of caffeine.
Yes. Mountain Dew have more, you know, are there rankings of caffeine? Is Mountain Dew one of the more heavily, more caffeinated?
I believe so. I haven't
Yeah.
done my research on that.
You haven't?
No. I don't know the
Okay,
caffeine
on levels
rankings.
of
So.
caffeine.
We'll bring you back for another episode. You can give us an
Okay.
update on
All
that. Okay?
right.
All right.
Yeah, for an update.
All right.
So, there's some
Can I
sleep-
ask a question? You've been asking all the
Oh,
questions.
I'm sorry. I'm hogging the mic.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
You're hogging the cards.
No, sorry.
Yeah, give me some cards. I want some of this action too, babe. I want some of this. All right. So, what can we do to promote more restful sleep, just in general, and particularly, I guess, with children and students?
Yeah. So some of the things that we've talked about today, focusing on sleep hygiene is really good. I think consistency is one of the best things that you can do for your sleeping habits. Whether you're an adult or a child, consistency is really important. And so one of the most important sleep hygiene practices is going to bed at the same time every night and waking up at the same time every morning.
Gotcha.
And even throughout the weekend, sometimes that might vary an hour or two in the weekend, but as much as possible, trying to be as consistent as possible with your sleep hygiene.
Gotcha.
And the time that you're going to bed and waking up every night.
I had another thought on that. So, we're kind of winding down the school year, and the students are going to be getting into a whole different routine of sleeping and going to bed and waking up. And people are like, oh, great, we can sleep in. Or, some people, the parents get their children busy. So what are your thoughts on kind of winding down the school year and amping up? Because I know we try to, about a week or so before the school year starts to kind of get them back on a school schedule. So, what are your thoughts about kind of winding down and preparing for entering back into the fall?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go back to your earlier question about how do you get kids up in the morning, and it kind of all relates together. So, one of our most important sleep hormones is called melatonin.
Mm-hmm.
Melatonin is something that our body naturally produces. And one of the ways that our body is cued to produce melatonin is through lighting. And so, one of the ways, going back to your earlier question, is really giving yourself and your kids good light cues in the morning. And so, opening up the curtains, making sure, you turn the lights on, things like that to kind of get people activated.
Yeah.
I know we kind of all enjoy a really slow start, but if you're really needing to get going, that can
Pointing at my
really
wife, if
help.
you can't see me right now, I'm pointing at Janita Bailey. All right, I'm sorry.
And so light cues are really important. And so, the summertime it's light outside till 9:30 here, where we live. And so, it's going to be harder to get kids to go to bed early at night.
I feel like a
'cause it's
loser when you go to
light.
bed when the sun's still up.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that kind of naturally happens. But, then as you're winding into the fall, even though it might still be light out, creating a really low light environment in your home, making sure the curtains are closed, the lamps are turned on low, you're not having a lot of overhead light, things like that.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes into the screen topic, which is a whole nother discussion or question. But the lighting cues are really important as far as how we get our information, how we give our body information that it's time to go to sleep and it's time to wake up.
Yeah.
So what is you mentioned the lighting. So what is this blue light thing?
Yeah.
It's blue light
Yeah,
that
blue light.
emanates. What is the concern about that?
Yeah, so different lights have different frequencies, and they hit our eyes, and even though we don't know it, our brain is picking up that these lights have different frequencies. So the screens that we look at throughout the day, our cell phone, our computer, our tablet, whatever we're looking at, has this blue light emanating from it. So it's going at a certain frequency that's hitting our brain, and that light is very activating. It's telling our brain it's time to stay awake, it's time to be alert, and so those screens really cause our brains to wake up. And so the big deal about screens, getting off screens an hour before bedtime, is to give our brain a chance to recalibrate to getting rid of that high frequency light, and getting to a point where it's saying, okay, I'm producing enough melatonin, I'm feeling like it's time to go to bed. And so getting off those screens is really important. Some people have tried a couple of different hacks, like putting different filters on your phone, or
sleep mode.
Yeah, sleep mode, exactly.
Yeah, that solves all the problems, right?
And then you can also buy, I think you can get them on Amazon,
Yeah,
but you can get these blue light blocking glasses, that are supposed to help as well. And so some people have mentioned that that's helpful. But again, if you are somebody who struggles with insomnia, taking that really seriously to kind of get off the screens would be a really good first step.
Okay.
And one other thing on that, I was reading recently also, even when you close your eyes, that light is still hitting your eyelids. And so that's why it's really important in terms of sleep hygiene to have a very dark room, because your brain is still processing light. So even if you're falling asleep in front of the TV, those lights are still hitting your eyelids, going into your eyes, through into your brain, and keeping you activated. And so, people who say, well, I have to fall asleep in front of the TV, it's likely you're not getting a really good rest that night.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is a movement lately with some of the school districts to start high school and middle schools later. Why is that, and why do some people feel like that's important to do?
And I was just thinking about that when Mr. Malcolm called in from his class, all these
Yeah.
kids talking about going to bed at 2 a.m.
They're probably cheering right now.
Yeah, exactly. So really interesting thing happens around adolescence is our circadian rhythm, which is kind of the rhythm that happens throughout the day that tells us that it's time to go to sleep. So our circadian rhythm kind of shifts back 2 hours, about 2 hours when you become an adolescent. And so, and then when you become a young adult and into adulthood, it shifts forward again. So this really unique time in adolescence where your circadian rhythm is off by about 2 hours. And so teens and adolescents naturally feel more awake, more alert later on into the evening, and then naturally feel more sleepy and tired in the morning. And that's just a really natural scientific phenomenon that happens, and there's different speculation as to why. But so, for example, what might feel like 10 p.m. to you or I might feel like 8 p.m. to them.
They're just getting started.
They're just getting started. And so, that same thing translates to the morning. If we're asking a child to get up, or a teenager to get up at 6 a.m., it really feels like 4 a.m. That's like asking you or I to get up at 4 in the morning. And so obviously, how you feel when you have to get up that early. You just don't feel your best. You're not thinking clearly. And so really interesting thing they've done is they've actually done studies where the schools have shifted to a later start time, and across the board, without changing any other metrics, those schools have reported higher test scores.
Really?
Because those kids just feel more awake, more alert, and they feel more equipped to do the things that they're being asked to do. So it's actually, I think, a really good idea. I wish more people would consider it, because it's actually really helpful for those kids.
So if they're going to school earlier and they're coming in groggy and tired, how does that affect their ability to receive information? Because high school can be pretty intense with those hardcore subjects, algebra 1, geometry. I'm a math guy, so I'm going to kind of lean towards the math stuff, calculus or whatever biology, whatever it is they're taking. And doing it when you're tired, how does that impact the student's ability just to process and receive what's being taught to them?
Right. Yeah. So they're not, if they're not getting a good night's sleep beforehand, they're coming in tired. They're going to have a really hard time taking in that information. Like you said, you can kind of think of it like a sponge, and if it's already saturated, then you're not going to be able to add more water into it. Right. And that's kind of what happens throughout when we're getting a good night's sleep and we're awake and prepared to do what we need to do, then our brain is like a dry sponge, and
So
we're
it
able
kinda
to
squeezes
receive.
it out, like ready
Because
to
all of
receive.
the waste
Yeah,
has been
exactly.
eliminated.
It was flushed down the toilet. Yes.
Exactly. So, it's better to have a dry sponge to receive all of that information than one that's already saturated. And so, getting a good night's sleep, having an appropriate start time, those are going to set those kids up for success to receive the information that they're being asked to process.
And another thing that you said, that when we're sleeping, our memories start to solidify and things like that. So I know when I at one point started forgetting things a lot. Like I'd forget
At one
people's
point.
name. I'm better now. Okay, I'm not well rested. But I started forgetting things. Like I couldn't remember just like regular, like, what is that? It's a shoe. Like, and so I went to my
It's a shoe?
doctor. Yeah, I mean, it was bad. It was that bad.
That's pretty
I'm just
bad,
saying.
babe.
Yeah. But I went to my doctor and I was like, do I have early onset of anything? And she's like, let's start with getting a good night's rest.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's like, how much sleep are you getting? I was like 6 hours. And she said, that is not enough. So, yeah, to your point, all of the, if you're experiencing memory loss, or if you want to remember because you're trying to study for tests and things like that, sleep is so important because all of your memories start to solidify.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I think I saw one of the topics of today was talking about all-nighters, pulling an all-nighter.
Yeah.
And if you think about what you just said about how our brain helps us with our memory when we're asleep. And so pulling that all-nighter is not going to help you to do well on that exam that you're cramming for. It's much more effective. They've done a lot of studies that show it's much more effective to, study a little bit beforehand and then go and get a great night's sleep. Maybe study like an hour or two before your test. That's going to set your brain up much better to be able to perform on that exam than staying up all night. After that point, you're going into a test, you're completely depleted, and your brain has not had a chance to really categorize those memories that you're trying to really access during that test.
Yeah, so it's like a law of diminishing returns.
Exactly.
Basically, the later you go, the less you're going to get.
Exactly.
And even here's a noggin educational coaching moment, everyone. So even better than studying the morning of, which is better than doing an all-nighter. Plan out several days in advance. So if you have a test on a Friday, start studying on a Monday. You can do small chunks. Hence, we'll take away the need for the all-nighter in the first place.
Absolutely, yeah. And, that's totally the recommendation, is to study over a period of time. Again, that gives your brain that time to consolidate those memories.
Right.
So that it's really going to be in there when you need it, versus, I think a lot of people kind of tend to panic and they don't plan well.
Right.
And so they feel the need to do the all-nighter, which really is not going to be helpful.
Yeah. That's some good stuff. All right. So, what health issues can chronic lack of sleep lead to? What are some of the issues that if you just develop a lifestyle of just not sleeping early on, school, middle school, high school, college, work, entrepreneurship, because I'm kind of in that boat right now, just struggling with trying to hang on here because got to work. You don't work, don't eat. So what are some of the repercussions of that?
Right. So, kind of talked about early on, you think about any goal that you have, and how you're going to achieve that goal. And you think of the steps that you need to take to achieve those goals. And I think just factoring in, hey, I'm going to be a person who is committed to getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, because I know that's going to help me to reach my goal. I know that's going to help me to interact with people in a better way. I know that's going to help me with stress management. I know that's going to help me with my attention and my focus. And so, I think, in our culture, in our society, we tend to kind of wear this badge of honor of like, oh, I only sleep, 3 hours or 4 hours a night.
Right.
And it's like, look at how productive I am. But like you said earlier, this law of diminishing returns kicks in to where if you're sleeping 3 to 4 hours a night, then during the day, you're not able to focus as well. You're not able to, feel your best. And then, you also talked about kind of like body systems, our immune system goes down. We're at higher risk for things like cancer and obesity and things like that are directly linked to lack of sleep. And so if you don't make this a part of your goal planning, then you can really, just make that goal not as achievable as if you plan to kind of get an adequate amount of rest throughout your day.
Yeah. This has me thinking about from coming from the educator mindset now of how much work teachers give their students. In my opinion, I think there needs to be a good balance of giving them quality work, but not giving them just work for work's sake. I've had students who I've worked with, I've coached in, they had 35 problems. Why? It's so they're spending all these hours doing all these problems. Okay, if you don't get it after the first 10 to 15, then you're not going to get it for the next 20 as well. And sometimes just the nature of school and the rigor of the school can have an impact on that too. So I'm just kind of thinking out loud for any educators out there, just to be mindful of how much, because more doesn't necessarily mean better.
Right.
And I'm not necessarily saying don't give them any work, but to really balance that, to say, what do I need to give to make sure they actually, can understand the concept well, but not kill them just to brag and say, we give our kids tons of homework at night. Anyway, I'm just kind of thinking.
Well, and kind of going back to, what Mr. Malcolm called in with his students, they may not be motivated by wanting to do good on the STAR test. Like, that's a really hard concept for them to really think like, oh, I want to do good on my STAR test. But, if you think about any other goal you have, if you want to do good in sports, if you're into, the arts, if you're into music, things like that, sleep is helpful for those things as well.
Yeah.
And so if those are things that are important to you, then like sleep can help with everything. So,
right.
Yeah.
That's great.
Let's spend our last couple minutes giving some tips about how we can avoid the need for the all-nighter, whether it's the project that you have to finish and your kid comes to you like the night before and says, I have to build a volcano or I have this test the next day. So what are some things that you help your clients with so that they don't have to wait to the last minute and then lose sleep?
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, just kind of mapping it out, kind of going backwards. So look at the due date, and then planning backwards multiple days, or you have to look at a timeline from when you get the assignment to when it's due, or from when you know when a test is coming up to when you're going to take the test. But to take it back as far as possible and then break it up into smaller bite-sized pieces. And then also looking at how much time does it realistically take to get something done. Also looking at, if you say it's a project, okay, well, if there's materials you have to buy, you have to actually go out and buy the materials. You have to carve out time for that. It's not just going to magically happen. If you come up the night before and say, oh, we got to go to the store at 10 and buy, colored cotton balls, where are you going to find that at? So you have to really plan those things out as well, breaking them down into sections. So let's say you're doing a test on chapter 7 of a test. Well, maybe Monday do 7.1, Tuesday do 7.2, Wednesday do 7.3, Thursday, do 7.4, and really it should be just like a light review. The night before a test should not be a time where you're trying to learn it for the first time.
Right.
And even before that, if you want to go back even further, even a better tip than even, to help you really drive it in is to actually study along the way. So as you get the material, you're learning it in smaller pieces so that when you get to the actual week of the test, you're not trying to learn it for the first time. I know a lot of kids, they just struggle with that because they don't study. They don't review what was being taught. And so when you don't do that, it's going to really have a big impact on their ability to retain what's being, what they need for the test as well. So really just backwards design is taking it from where you want to go to taking it back to where you are whenever you can, digesting it in smaller pieces as you go. The night before, a little review, because when you're ready, those times when you know you're ready,
right?
Versus the time when you know you're not, and you're like some of my kids used to do on a test. They would, I give them an assignment. You know what they would write on there? Jesus. Jesus is the answer to everything, right? No. Well, I say, not on this test, and bam, wrong, because that's just not prepared, or you can't, come and, dear Lord, I know I didn't study, but please, No, well, study. Study. I say teachers teach, students study. I could keep on going, but I'm not going to. Cause
Yeah.
Well, do you have any resources that we could offer them that you give us that you usually give to your clients,
yes.
like a form or something?
Yeah, so one of them is if you go to noggineducation.com, as soon as you go on the page at the very top is our daily study checklist. It is a list that we've created to show you as a parent and your child how to work through a study session at night as well. And if you send me an email to david@noggineducation.com, I can send you a project worksheet as well that I've created. I'm thinking about putting that up on the website as well. Now that you're
It'll be on
mentioning
the School Days website.
Oh, it will?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, great. I got to make it look nicer. Yes. Okay, so thanks, babe. All right. No, but seriously, now it's kind of hard because we're kind of at the end of the school year and kids are probably like, well, whatever.
Well, some people are taking summer classes.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So it does help. But just keep these things in mind, parents, because it is so critical so they won't have to pull an all-nighter and be
Because
tired.
an all-nighter sometimes means that you're doing an all-nighter too.
Mm-hmm.
And you will not be fresh for work.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We're actually out of time. This hour just flies by usually. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
For sharing with our audience. And as always, we want to let you know what's going on with Noggin. So what's going on with Noggin Educational Coaching, Dave?
So as we are kind of coming towards the final stages of test prep, whether it be STAR testing, state testing, college, the standardized tests, that it's still not too late, that there are ways that you can learn how to be a smarter test taker, and Noggin is here to help you with that. So you can go to noggineducation.com where you'll see our test prep services, what we do, but also it's never too early to start preparing for the long-term preparation. I see a lot of students now that because they forgot a lot of stuff are not prepared academically for some things that they have to do. So start early. We can help you find those gaps now and get you on that path. So when it's time to take those tests, maybe in the fall, SATs and those types of things, that you're ready. So if you're taking it now or later, we're here for you. We'd love to serve you.
Yeah, and so with Noggin Educational Foundation, we actually have an event this weekend. So we are gearing up for our summer math and reading program, and what we do is we do a lot of hands-on fun activities and games, but it takes a lot of time for us to put all those together. So this Saturday from 10 to 2, we will be at our office in the Grand Prairie area. So if you're somewhere in the Metroplex, we would love for you to help us cut and paste and organize our activities and give us some help. So if you would like more information about that, you can email me at info@schooldaysshow.com. So
let me say one more thing about that. And also, if you have a child who needs volunteer hours,
absolutely,
or a youth a youth group or something, that's a great opportunity for them to get hours met functionally for them, but also can help us as well. So
yeah, I think we have a couple students showing up this weekend just for that.
Yeah, so it could be a family affair.
Yeah. So what's happening next week?
So next week, our listeners will take over the episode. You guys will ask the questions. We've invited Associate Superintendent Dr. Buddy Banner from Louisville ISD, an education advocate, and former principal Belinda Nickel to answer your questions.
Yeah, between the two of them, they have 62 years of experience in education.
That's some wisdom right there.
That's a lot of wisdom. So send us your questions, anything education related. So it could be about education policy or curriculum or homeschooling, maybe what are some of the resources in the school districts and things like that. Whatever questions you have, you guys literally regarding education, you guys are taking over. So email us those questions to info@schooldaysshow.com because the show is in your hands. And as always, head to our website, schooldaysshow.com, for more information. And remember, you don't ever have to miss a show. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Stitcher, pretty much anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can download and subscribe to us. And also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we're going to be at Noggin Foundation. And there we share a lot of tips for helping your student, information about programs, and things about the School Days show, so you don't have to miss those shows. And so we hope to find you guys there. And the last thing we always want to end by saying that David and I are parenting by grace.
We depend on God to give us the wisdom and strength we need to raise our kids into flourishing adults. If you'd like to find out more about this, email us at info@schooldayshow.com. And in light of this episode, I may just go take an afternoon nap.
She said naps aren't good.
Oh, well, then I'll take a...
You'll go to bed early.
Yeah, I guess that's even better. I might be tired now, though. Anyway. All right, guys. Well, have a good night and have a great week.